Love Where You Live, a podcast where we have conversations about why it's awesome to live in Boulder. And today I'm lucky enough to be joined by my neighbor. And here I say that because it's truly steps away that she had to walk to get here. Not even a minute, right across the street. And we said that a couple months ago, because we had another neighbor on the show. But before I spoil it, I'm going to dive right in and say thank you so much to Megan Roche for being here.
Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to be here. It's funny because we come over this way a lot. Our little guy loves playing rocks out by the creek. And we often linger by your house because I'm like, maybe Michael and Amanda will come out and talk to us.
There you go.
So selfishly, I've been very excited because I'm like, I just want to talk to Michael. So
well, good.
This is great.
Well, that's a nice compliment to start with. And I'm sorry Amanda's not here. We could have a three-way conversation. But all that to say, we think the same. We see you guys all the time. We love our quick interactions on the street. And I couldn't be more excited to have you here and have a nice 3 or 4 hour conversation. Hopefully that's in your calendar, 3 to 4 hours.
I would love to talk to you for 4 hours. I'm like, give me all your wisdom. Actually, I feel like you have so much wisdom. I just got a tour of the house and I was like, teach me about kitchens, teach me about master bathrooms and closets and things like that. So I'm like, give me all your wisdom.
Okay, my wisdom is your wisdom, so we could go there as well. So let's just give an introduction here, and I actually wrote some things down, and a lot of it was that you gave me off your website. You didn't know you gave it to me. But for those of you that don't know Megan Roche, the name, she does have a husband named David. They live together across the street. They have a beautiful family, 2 little ones. And in 2016, the USA Track and Field Trail Runner of the Year at the ultra and sub-ultra distances. This is just some stats that this draws people in. 5-time national champion, North American mountain running champion, 6-time member of Team USA. And then where it starts to get crazy, where I can't even compute all this stuff, you graduated with honors from Duke with a degree in neuroscience. She received also her MD from Stanford Medical School. But while she was at it, she also got a PhD there at Stanford in epidemiology. But your focus was on female athlete health and performance research. Does that sound good?
That is perfect. Yeah.
And of course, because I'm reading it. Usually I do this by memory, but I read that. I just chucked my notes so I look a little smarter. And then also, what's super cool, you have the SWAP, Some Work, All Play coaching and podcast platform that you run with David.
Yep, love it.
And this is, guys, if you want to really get to some awesome podcasts, check this out. They are stratosphere level. It's so fun. They talk about all kinds of cool stuff. Really fun. And you have to stay focused because you guys cover a lot. You guys are really good.
I describe it kind of as like ping pong. I feel like we're like ping-ponging back and forth.
Okay.
You have a really nice podcast set up, and we have a podcast set up in our master bedroom. We share a microphone, and I feel like we're just ping-ponging with jokes back and forth, but mixing a lot of like running science and anecdotes and talk about athletes that we coach. And so it's been fun. We've been doing it like 4 or 5 years now, which is wild. So we just did our 250th episode.
Dang.
And every Tuesday. But it's fun to record a podcast, and it's like every Tuesday we get it out, and it's nice because it's like whatever we got, it's going out.
It's going out.
Going out to the world. So
well, little kind of just, I forgot to, it's a peek under the hood. Does your intro with Yay It's Tuesday, because you got this thing, does that go live? Is that canned, or do you do that every time you guys start saying that?
We do it every time.
I love that.
And every once in a while, so we go 3, 2, 1 woohoo as our intro, and every once in a while we mess it up. So we have a number of woohoos where we're like out of sync, or someone says it first.
Right.
But it's been fun to get to record that together, and very simple setup of just woohoo, welcome to the podcast, and then we get rolling.
It's Tuesday, Yay Tuesday, something to that effect.
Yeah, actually we record it often on Mondays.
Right.
And then when it actually is Tuesday, sometimes we record it on Tuesdays, it's like, it's actually Tuesday.
Correct. Oh my gosh, I love it. So that's fun, little behind the scenes. But what I love too, and we're going to get into a lot here, I think, today, but what's neat to me is that you guys from the outside, from the surface here, looking over across the street, husband-wife duo, you guys sync so well together. I mean, and that's in as husband-wife, as parents, as business partners, as coach-athlete, as trainer, all the stuff, exercising together, and that's just really special. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, we do a lot together. Actually, it's funny because I just came over here, I walked over here, the 1-minute commute to your house, and I was just downstairs in our pain cave doing a Zwift workout, and David was down there coaching me and sending me to very special suffering places. And so it's fun. It's like, we record a podcast together. We mutually coach each other. So I coach him and he coaches me. And sometimes we do some self-coaching in that process
too. Of course.
It's an iterative process. And have a business together. And it's fun. It's also, you have to set boundaries too. I'm sure, you and Amanda have learned that working together, but it's, we spend a lot of time together and I'm grateful for it.
Yes. Okay, good. Well, that's awesome. A little bit of the current. And then if you don't mind, I want to put a little placeholder there and come back to it, because what's happening now is really fascinating. And what's super interesting to me, and I know you just a little bit, I feel like, is I want to hear some backstory. And if you don't mind, let's just talk about kind of where you grew up and what you were into as a little kid. What was it like to be, growing up Megan Roche?
I love it.
You weren't Roche, so tell me more.
Yeah, grew up on the East Coast, and actually I love the mountains so much, but I never made it out here to Colorado until age 21. And as soon as I got out here, I was like, I want to make every life choice to live in Boulder, Colorado.
Is that right?
So I knew that, from age 21, but I don't think I'd been to the mountains until that point. So I grew up outside Philadelphia in Valley Forge area, and beautiful, like I love nature and I love like connecting to nature in that way, and beautiful like Beast Coast, gnarly trails, rocks, roots. So grew up as a kid, hiking out there, running with my dad. I loved, like, sports were my passion. I was a very shy kid. I remember like my first day of kindergarten, I ran away from school. Didn't feel like I naturally fit in that school environment, and ultimately learned to go to school and spent a long time later doing many degrees and going to different schools for better or for worse. But I feel like for me, like sports was a big passion. So soccer, field hockey, basketball, and really just had a blast growing up and spent, 18 years in Philadelphia. But definitely, I think now that I've been here in Colorado, is like I'm ready to move to the mountains. And I don't feel like, I go home and back to Pennsylvania and it feels like home, but it doesn't feel like home from like that nature perspective of what I love about it here. I gotcha.
Okay, that's awesome. So 0 to 18 was when you were born there, raised. Okay, but you just mentioned 3 big team sports, traditional, in there playing with others, not what you're doing now.
Yes, yeah. Grew up, I loved soccer, big passion. Loved basketball, but had a penchant for fouling out of games. So I was like, through a few too many, I accumulated fouls quite fast. I was used to the soccer field. But ultimately actually wound up being quite interested in field hockey. And then played college field hockey. And really loved, for me, like ball sports, I have such a passion for that. And I wanted to be an athlete lifelong. And then you get to the point in college where you're like, I'm a senior and there's very few avenues to play long-term field hockey. And I was like, I need something else in my life. And at that point I met David. And so I met David when I was 20 in college at Duke. He was a law student at the time. And I just kind of started following him along on trail runs and runs and getting my butt kicked. I remember the first run that we went on, I got dropped. It was I like bonked immediately. But learned about like endurance sports through that. And I was like, I love being an athlete and I need something different in my life. And so went from being a field hockey player to a runner, and actually walked onto the track team. And took 5th year. Yeah.
No way. Okay. So you met your sort of 3rd, 4th year?
I was a junior when we met, and a field hockey player.
Yeah. Okay.
And actually, I met David, and like 2 weeks later, he came to one of my field hockey games and was cheering for me there, and happened to be sitting next to my dad, who didn't know about David, and so the two of them met together.
Oh my gosh!
At my field hockey game. Neither of them knew anything about each other, so it was,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And they got along?
Yeah, they got along.
They were both cheering for the same girl. Okay, so and then senior year, you decide that based on that little dose of running and whatnot, you're going to try track. How did you manage that? How'd that look?
I should have gone, field hockey player, I was a power sport athlete, doing a lot of squats, deadlifts. I should have gone and done like the 800 or mile.
Totally, yeah.
But something in my brain was like, I want to do like the 5K, 10K. So went from doing wind sprints on the field hockey field to going out and like doing big training runs, and worked my way up to like 70, 80 miles a week pretty rapidly, and walked onto the track team, competed in the 5, 10K. Definitely didn't get like the most. I'm going from being a power athlete to an endurance athlete in a short period of time, but it was fun, and I learned a lot about like physiology and also like what not to do as an athlete.
I bet. Oh yeah. Now I'm fascinated. It's sort of field hockey, massive engine, massive power, but you're running you're running how long's the game? 90 minutes? 75 minutes?
It's funny. It's like, I just panicked. I was like, it's been a long time since I played field hockey. I think it's 90 minutes.
2 45-minute halves? Like soccer.
Yeah. But it's funny, it's been 13 years. I'm like, is it
Yeah.
75 or 90?
So it's, but okay, so, but really, you're running a lot. You're probably covering 5 miles, if I'm estimating, maybe something like that in the game. But did you struggle with all of a sudden 0 to 60, it says 0 to 80, but that's a big jump. Was your body okay with that?
My body was a little shocked, honestly.
Okay.
It was kind of like, what is going on? And so in the process, like before I walked onto the team, my training theory was just going out the door and running as hard as I could.
Okay.
Progressively.
Yeah.
And ultimately it's like, that's a pretty hard way to train. And so I called it Megan runs, of just going out the door, running real fast for an hour and coming back. And so that kind of laid like the foundation of my endurance training, and then ultimately kind of learned through trial and error and a number of different injuries. Yeah. And also just like, it's hard to run in that way. And so a number of different like mental crises of like, this is hard. I don't want to go out the door and run hard every day. And so ultimately learned a lot about training theory, just kind of from that like guess and test place.
How cool. Okay. And so was it enjoyable? I mean, I know it was informative and you learned a lot. Did you love that process or?
I loved running and I loved the process of training with David. But I will say the last race of my like collegiate track season, it was a 10K NCAA regionals. And I didn't qualify for NCAA finals. And honestly, I was so happy.
Oh, you were? Oh, yeah.
I was so happy. I was like, I do not want to run in circles anymore. Like, I just think I was pretty burnt out on the process of track. And I was like, I want to try biking. I want to try others, like other endurance sports. And I was like, all these girls were crying at like the last track meet, and I was like, I am so excited not to run in circles anymore.
Yeah. How funny. Okay. And you had at that time been on a bike already, or just you had done some cycling?
Loved. My dad grew up. I was always his like water girl when he was biking or running.
Okay.
So I would bike with him when he ran, and then ultimately like did some bike trips with him and things like that. So I was never like a great biker growing up just because I never invested in it, but I knew it was out there, and I was like, I want to try biking, I want to try trail running, I want to try these like other endurance sports.
Yes, I have this memory when we all first crossed paths, me and David, and him saying, well, if she had better bike handling skills, she would have been a pro cyclist. And you're kind of like, is that real? But you have the engine and you had the joy, but maybe you didn't ever pursue it deep like that.
Yeah, I think I was always like kind of going back and forth between running and biking.
That's cool.
And I think also in my head too, running felt just, I've crashed before biking. And it's like, and David, actually, I'm sure you talked about this on the podcast, he's, been hit by a car. And so running felt like a safer option.
Understood.
And then also too, with heading into med school, I understood the amount of work that it takes to go into being a cyclist, just in terms of the number of raw hours that you have to put in. Yeah. And running felt a little bit simpler.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. It's kind of like the equivalent. 20 plus hours of riding in a week is like 8 or 10 or something. It's less than half. So I think, but that could be a skewed figure. But nonetheless, okay. So you just mentioned it. So you're in Durham, North Carolina, 5th year. You've met David. You guys are hitting it off, and then you get ready. You've got a degree, and you're pretty happy, but you're ready to keep going for more studies.
Yeah. So I wound up applying to med school, and I had never been. Actually, I don't think I'd ever been to California before. Okay. And David on a whim was like, hey, Stanford feels like it really fits your vibe in terms of it's a beautiful place. Like, they value athletics and they have a great sports medicine program. And so I just kind of applied there on a whim. Had never been to the Bay Area. Got an interview, went out, ran in the Marin Headlands we ran across the Golden Gate Bridge and then ran up into the Marin Headlands. And immediately I was like, if I get in here, I want to go here.
Right.
It was just, California is stunning. We went when it was like, the grass was so vibrant and green and there was redwoods everywhere and the ocean. Yes. And I was like, sign me up. Yes. This is amazing. And I loved, I just loved Stanford as a like school and the people there. Okay. And people just felt really like, in the medicine program felt really authentic in that they were doing medicine for the right reasons. And so I did ultimately get in and went out there and we spent 8 years out in the Bay Area. Wow. And I love California. It will always hold a piece of my heart. Yeah, I can tell. That shows. I mean, I follow you online with the Insta and the Strava and the stuff, and it shows. I mean, you could tell there's passion. There's still part of your heart is there. Oh, yeah. Actually, we had a mission. We wanted to run every single South Bay, North Bay, East Bay trail when we were there. We got pretty close. Yeah. But it was nice. Like, we would spend weekends just going and finding new trails and covering ground together. And
love that.
Man, it's beautiful. Also, the trails are nice. Like, here we got good rocks, which I love. I love technical trail running, but California is flowy.
Yeah.
You just go and the trails have like, 25 switchbacks, and you go and you flow and you fly, and it's fun.
It's pretty nice. Okay, yeah, for sure. I know and now, all right, Duke to Stanford. Was it neuroscience undergrad or was that a graduate? Yeah, undergrad.
Neuroscience undergrad.
Yeah, and then medical school, and you're in, and that's 3 years.
4 years.
4 years. Yeah, of course. I should have known that. And then you're there for 4 years, Palo Alto.
Yeah.
Or more.
It was amazing. I was there. I took a year to do research as well. And it was interesting. I went into med school and I was like, I want to be a neurosurgeon.
Okay.
I had the neuroscience background. I was like, I loved the surgical field. And then I very quickly realized that I would be working, 100-hour work weeks all the time.
Yeah.
And there's just so much richness in my life outside of medicine. And I was like, I'm actually not ready to sacrifice that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of this reckoning throughout med school of coming in wanting to be a neurosurgeon and then pivoting and being like, okay, I want to be in sports medicine. And then started coaching in med school and realized I was like, I just have such a passion for working with people in this way that it felt more meaningful for me to go that direction.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And what stands out too is that you chose that quality of life that you knew was important to you at the right time. And you said, this is where I want to go. This is still a passion. I mean, I'm sure that you were very fascinated by the neuroscience and being a neurosurgeon, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I fell in love with trail running when I was in med school and coaching and working with people. And I was just like, there's so much to my life.
So much.
Beyond medicine. And I think the reality of a lot of fields of medicine is that is the one thing that you have. At that point, it's like, I look back and I'm so grateful for trail running and coaching, because at that point I didn't even have a family either.
Yeah.
And now it's like my decision to calculus has fundamentally changed with 2 kids,
100%.
2 young kids.
Imagine.
And I'm so grateful. I'm like, I can't imagine what it would be like if I was surgeons make it work and they do amazing things, but it's also like, I just, I love playing Play-Doh in the kitchen.
So much.
4 p.m., on a
whatever.
flexible schedule right now, and it's really nice.
I love, this is weird, but I just was sitting in the office of a neurosurgeon this morning, not because there's something wrong. Maybe there is. But nonetheless, I literally looked at her, and I didn't put this together, but I remember looking at her thinking, she's fantastic at what she does. And I remember thinking, I wonder what else is going on in her life. And I don't know why, but she was talking about her busyness, and you can tell she's committed. It is her one thing.
Yeah.
Or one of 1.5 things. It's really not, it's all encompassing.
It has to be. Yeah, and it's actually a very male-dominated field as well. And I don't know if it's still, I haven't seen the stats in a minute, but both orthopedic surgery and neurosurgery. And
I believe it.
Yeah, it's like, my big mission has been like elevating females within different fields. And so it's nice, it was a nice natural pivot away from that.
Well, no, I think and that actually was the second thought, because then another fella came in and he was like, well, I'm the chief at this. And I was like, I don't need to hear about that. She's so much. Anyway, I resonated a lot more with her, she with me. And so either way, that's cool. So you chose that, but then I seem to remember there was a PhD in there. So you're in Stanford, and then when does that come about where you decide to just grab that?
So 3rd year of med school is when you start thinking about applying to residency, which is when you go on and choose a specialty.
Okay.
And I'd been coaching for a year at this point. I was actually running professionally. I was with Nike first, and then Hoka. And so making like a solid salary trail runners don't make huge salaries, or didn't back in the day. Actually now, you can be pretty well off trail runner, which is great to see the progression of sport. But ultimately decided not to go on to residency and took a year, worked in Silicon Valley, actually in a genetics startup.
Oh, wow.
And we moved out here at the end of that. And I decided to do a PhD in epidemiology, focusing on research on female athletes. It felt just more, I actually really miss working with patients.
Sure.
It's so fun to, work with patients and get to hear their life story and kind of feel like you're involved in their healing journey. But I loved this option of researching female athletes, learning about things like bone stress injuries and menstrual cycle and postpartum return to sport
100%.
and some of these kind of important topics that we don't have a lot of research on. And so went and did a 4-year PhD focusing on that.
Holy smokes. And that was all there? You said you came out here, you did a little back and forth.
So we had actually moved here when I had decided to do the PhD in our house, which I made the 1-minute commute from. And I was planning to go back and forth, and I had been for 6 months at the start of the program, every 2 weeks from here to California, and it was a lot.
That is a lot.
And we are also classic Palo Alto. We, have a house here that's somewhat nice, and the house where we were staying in Palo Alto was like a 400 square foot studio apartment.
Huge.
So we would go from our beautiful house here
nice
right on
house.
the trails
Yes.
to this 400 square foot apartment together.
Yeah.
But then actually COVID hit and my PhD went remote. And so then I was able to finish the rest of the PhD here in Boulder, which was nice.
That is cool. And I have to kind of, rewind it. What you said before too about finding the coaching aspect and really getting to explore that while you're in school studying medicine, and then saying you miss the patient interaction. Is there a nice sort of replacement there for that? Because you still get to impact people, see them on a different journey. Some still health, but the wellness and the goals and all that, like you're really still involved.
Yeah. Actually, I coach a number of athletes. Most of them, I think, 75% female athletes at this point.
Very cool.
A lot of pro athletes chasing road, track, trail performances.
Yeah.
And it is nice actually, because it almost feels like I have this primary medicine cohort of, because it's a lot of health, running and performance is related to health. And
Completely.
so, we're doing things like managing training through the flu and resting and recovering and getting athletes back healthy, or bone stress injuries, or even hormonal health or fertility. And so a lot of health conversations come into coaching.
I'm sure.
And I'm very careful. I'm like, this is not medical advice.
Right.
But it is nice to have that background to be able to integrate how they train surrounding health things that come up. So it feels a lot like I'm working with just a very motivated and fun patient population. And I talk to my athletes every day. And so it's these athletes have become my friends too. It's
That's good. Yeah. Well, and what's kind of cool too, having spent time as an athlete and around athletes, you're giving a perspective where there's so much question as far as what are the repercussions of training? Like you just said it, training with the flu, out of the flu, coming back. There's so much that with your background and coaching medicine, and you're also the athlete. So you have a 3-part look at what these athletes are going through. How valuable. I mean, that's remarkable.
It is nice. Well, it's I talked about going down to our pain cave today before walking over, and it's I think I've done almost every workout that I give to my athletes.
Oh, wow.
And so it's nice. It's I feel like to prescribe suffering, you have to have suffered yourself. And I think it's a really helpful, it's helpful. Yeah.
I certainly agree. And I think it's always hard to take a coach, to give a coach that level of credibility when it's completely out of the book. You're you've never even, run a quarter mile, or whatever it is. And it also understanding that there are some brilliant coaches that don't ever, perform or haven't performed, but still. I prefer your style.
No, it's nice. It's and I can be this fifth minute here is really going to hurt because I just went through this. And I think, my athletes value that too. It's I've tested everything. And so, but it's fun. A lot of the athletes now that I coach, I've worked with, starting in my 3rd year of med school. And so I've had now these 8-year relationships.
That's so cool.
With athletes. And I value that a lot.
Oh, I'm sure they do too. And that's amazing. And you guys are so cutting edge that I think you're able to continue to bring new stuff, which with a long-term relationship like that as a coach athlete, it's important that you evolve, I think.
Oh yeah. And we're in a world right now too, where performance science there's so much, I think half the time that I talk with my athletes is about little things that are supporting training, bicarb and ketones and nutrition and high carb fueling and super shoes and, this and that. And I think performance science is evolving so much that my conversations have become much more nuanced. It's almost I actually used this example on our podcast this week. It's almost like personalized medicine to some extent. Medicine is evolving in a sense that you're treating each patient in such a personalized way, and coaching is much the same. As there's just so much personalization and nuance to how you design training and all the little things that go into support.
That's so cool. Yes, 100%. And that's neat. It makes me, people say all the time, "Hey, you miss being an athlete." No, but having a coach like you and having all that in your brain and in your repertoire, and that you're seeking knowledge is so cool. That's inspiring that people are getting that. I love that.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's fun. It's
so good. And you guys, and I can tell it's fun. Again, to throw back to your podcast and folks that are listening here now that are interested, tune in. You will learn something. You will. You will absolutely not get through a show without learning at least one thing, but probably many more.
Yeah, we talked about marathons this week in the brain. And so there's just a lot of different stuff that comes up right now in performance science. But we have a lot of fun, maybe too much fun at times.
Too much fun. A little bit too much fun.
We're a
there's no such thing.
We're very open on there.
It's called some work, all play. So there should be a lot of play.
There is a lot of play on there.
There's a lot of play. So, okay, and with that, that's a perfect segue. I want to go, we talked a lot about some of the studying and the research and the coaching and the stuff. I want to go back to kind of some of your athlete, experience from leaving, starting the endurance. And so the first kind of question is, I read all those stats. I mean, that's multiple years of success at the national level and ultra. And how did that feel? Now you've left that, you're excited to not run around the track, and you go into, how does that feel? How does that look as you jump to trail running?
Oh, it was such a joyful process. Like, I think I was so ready to stop running in circles that so the summer after I graduated college and stopped competing on the track, came out here to Boulder with David for the summer. He was working an internship. Okay. I was actually doing nothing. It was it's like the one summer to do nothing. It was great. I feel like if you're out there and you've never done nothing for summer, please do it. It's great.
So what year? Sorry, just to interrupt.
I guess it was 2013.
Okay, go.
Yeah, so I was just about to enter med school. I was like, I just need 2 months to do nothing.
Perfect.
Came out here to the mountains and just did a ton. Big trail runs, big adventures.
Awesome.
Found our way up to like High Lonesome and some of my favorite trails up in Nederland. David actually his parents have a small cabin up in Nederland. Right. So spent a lot of time up there. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a trail runner. First year med school, just dove into the trail running scene, the US Mountain Team. And it was fun because it's like you get to travel to such cool, I've seen cool trails across the world.
I bet.
So it was just a fundamental difference coming off college track to then go compete.
Completely. Yeah. And what distance? Sub-ultra and ultra sub-ultra was what that stat was. What'd you run?
Primarily focused on half marathon, up to 50K. Cool. And then now that I'm getting older and my, having more slow twitch muscle fibers, it's great process of getting older, shifting up into 50K, 50 miler, and hope to run 100 miler.
100 miler, yeah. Okay, so that's super cool. Let me ask you this. You're in Stanford, you're in Palo Alto, you're in California, you're running on those great trails, racing some super cool events all over the world. I won't make you give me one. Top 2 best trail races in that time. Just in that 5 year, in that 3, 4, 5 year block.
Okay, Way Too Cool 50K was actually a big 50K back in the day. And I feel like since there's been an evolution within trail running to focus on races that feed Western States or UTMB, which are kind of like the 2 Super Bowl races in the trail running world. So Way Too Cool 50K is just these runnable trails in Auburn, California. Oh. And it's green grass everywhere, so fast, great trail community. They got frog cupcakes at the finish line. So
frog.
The frog is their motto, and there's frogs everywhere.
Okay.
But that's one of my favorite races, and I love races that are fast and flowy, and that was such a good course. I'm trying to think of a Colorado. I think the Leadville races are really fun here.
Oh yeah.
I did the Leadville heavy half marathon. Oh yeah. Coming from sea level. That was. I got up to 13,000 feet. I was like, I think we're gonna power hike this little segment right here.
Yeah. Not a lot of air.
But it's beautiful up there.
Okay.
And I think Leadville has such history in how it shaped the endurance community. Totally. And so that's another great race too. Okay, that's neat. I feel like you've done so much. It's cool to see, and the Way Too Cool. I'm going to write that one down. It probably doesn't exist anymore. It does.
It does exist.
It's smaller, but it does exist. Yeah.
So I'll sign up for it, and I've never run 50K, and you can coach me.
Wait, you've never run a 50K?
Well, I did a 40 miler, but I never done a 50K. That's one. I did one.
You've done a 50K within a 40 miler.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very good answer. So I was trying to, I was
like, wait a second here. You just did Grand Traverse.
Yes, I did. And you'll notice I'm still recovering from it. So, but no, okay, that's awesome. It's fun to see. So now I want to get into this flow. You said 2013, you first saw Boulder. What were your first impressions in that summer? Because you're a visitor and you're doing nothing but running.
Yeah. Oh, holy crap. David picked me up at the airport.
Yeah.
We drove up the canyon up to Nederland. Boulder to Nederland. And I was like, honestly, I'm getting goosebumps as I sit here thinking about it. I was like, I had no idea mountains like this existed.
Right? Okay.
And it was just stunning, awe-inspiring, seeing the creek come down the canyon and just the way that rock in the Boulder Canyon, it's just it's a special thing. And so I was like, okay, we're going to make every life decision around coming here to Boulder.
Right away, you knew that on that drive.
I knew that right away. And I also too, I've always wanted to have a family, and just being here too, it's David and I, our values are so grounded in the outdoors and adventure. And it's I want to raise kids in an environment like this. And it feels, I think our other thought was to stay in California.
Sure.
And here, the community and culture feels very, very different from the Bay Area, like much more laid back and into the outdoors. And I was like, this is how I want to raise kids too.
And you felt a lot of that just in those first experiences. You were just like, I know.
How
cool is that? All right.
And David and I, we did some big. We took our bikes places we should not have taken bikes
Of
as
course. You're like,
non-experienced bikers.
And if I'm doing the math right, I mean, this was 10 years before you had Leo.
Yeah, 10 years.
I mean, okay. All right, cool. So
I've always wanted kids. I was like,
no, I love that. Hey, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly kind of what I was curious about. So you spend the summer running, and then you kick off, you're back. I know our chronology is a little weird here, but my brain works this way. So now you're in Palo Alto and you're in school and you're doing the running and you've taken off. You moved here, you bought the place in 2018, is that right?
Yes, 2018. Yeah.
Okay. Weird real estate brain blending with weird stats.
We lucked out on that.
Yeah,
decision.
you guys. Well, it was good. I remember actually nearly. This is a side story. I nearly lost a finger hammering the sign into the ground there because it was February.
Way. Yeah.
Or January, February, I believe, and it was so cold and the ground was like tundra. That doesn't really apply to today, but I remember when the home hit the market. So you bought. And you moved right out, but that was when you were going back and forth.
We were going back and forth.
Okay.
And so the plan was to be here a little bit longer.
Okay.
And I sprung the PhD on David once we moved here. I was like, hey, I have this really great opportunity to do a PhD and, we can go back and forth. And that was a 48-hour, very involved husband and wife discussion just because it's a big deal to have someone to go back and forth. And David, as a wonderful husband, agreed to do it.
But it took a couple. That's intense. Yeah, because he's like, hey, we just bought a house. We're staying here. This is home.
Yeah.
What do you mean back and forth? I'm not commuting. Okay.
And so that was, and it's back and forth as an athlete and,
it's hard.
Working. He's working remote. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so, I'm so grateful for him for that. And then it was nice to pivot to a remote PhD.
And that was a year, that was all the way up till COVID. So two-ish years, or just under two-ish years back and forth. And your experience with Boulder, then you're half in, half out, but you're still loving it. And you're living in this great spot where trails are everywhere and community's nice.
Yeah, and where I was like, this is where I want to be. I've always known that. I was like, I want to be here full time.
Very cool.
And it's funny, so our house went on the market. I saw it when we were in California.
Okay.
Living in California because we were kind of watching the market from California. And I called Amanda.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew she was a listing agent.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, this amazing house, we love it. And so, connected with you guys.
Right.
Before we moved here.
Yeah, I know. I remember. And I was just, she came back and we're well in sync and communicate a lot. And she was just like, the coolest couple. That's when I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, these guys are awesome. They're these trail runners. She started telling basically the stats I just read. And I was like, wow, that's cool. And that you guys were buying Siri and Beck's place. It's like, oh, that's kind of a nice little, bump the knuckles, pass the baton.
Yeah, well, it was wild. So we saw the house here and immediately I fell in love with the house.
You did? Yeah. Why? Yeah.
It's like, our neighborhood, it's great gravel biking from here and trail running. And so
awesome.
I was like, our house needs a lot of work. It still needs a lot of work.
Well,
we've been here since 2018 and it's like, as I was walking over here, I was like, oh, our siding's kind of falling off.
Hey,
maybe we should fix that.
The joys of home ownership. There's always a project. You could be doing 6 projects a year and you're still going to have that.
Yeah, we moved in and we're like, we need to invest in a good pain cave.
Okay.
And that was like the one project we did. And so we have a number of other ones. But it was nice. I saw the house and I was like, this house has great bones in a neighborhood that we want to live in. Totally. And so, and then it turned out Siri and Beck had lived in the house. And Siri and Beck, world-class triathletes.
Yeah.
And we wound up just really enjoying them. We didn't know them before, but enjoying them as people. And we've become friends with them now. Since.
Very cool. And then funny enough, they're in California now. So it's kind of fun how it swaps.
We've swapped.
Yeah. But it's neat. And I love hearing that story. And it's also, you guys saw, it took me a while. I've been in Boulder for a lot of years before I moved to this neighborhood. And we knew it. But I think you guys knew right away it's a special place. And it's worked out. Like you were just saying, if I ever move, it's within this neighborhood.
Yeah, I don't think I can leave this neighborhood ever. I mean, our house,
fun stuff.
We have 2 kids, and I think we'll hold at 2 kids. But if we ever had 3, I'm like, we might need to touch more. We might have to figure something out. But I'm like, it would have to be within this neighborhood.
Yes, very cool. Okay, so that's fun stuff. So then 2020 hits, you go to remote, and you guys are full-time Boulder residents. Is it maybe a good check-in would be 2020 or 2021? is it all it was cracked up to be? Did you move here and are you saying, wow, I'm so glad this is it, or any regrets that you would say popped in at that point?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think it was 2021 or 2022, I started struggling with heart issues.
Okay.
I had myocarditis, pericarditis, and like pretty severe heart issues to the point that I wasn't sure I could ever be an endurance athlete again.
That's scary.
And it was scary. And I think the one downside of Boulder is that it is so endurance and outdoor focused.
Yes.
That all of a sudden I was grappling with, I was like, I might not be able to compete. I might not be able to train again. And to live in an environment where it's like everyone is going for it all the time, which is great and amazing. But the downside of that is like, when something like a heart happens and you can't do it, you're consistently surrounded by it.
That's tough.
And I think in those moments, I missed kind of more of just like the medical community that I have access to in California. And there have been times too that, I just think from a medical and research opportunity, there's probably more in California.
I bet you're right.
And I've made that sacrifice to be here in Boulder. And I do think about that, but it's also been, now that I have 2 kids, I'm glad I made that sacrifice.
Sure.
It's like, it's given me the flexibility and the freedom to be a mom and to do things that I'm passionate about at the same time that are more flexible. But it's definitely, I would say there have been times when that has felt overwhelming.
I 100% can understand that. And watching people come and go through their endurance or high-end endurance, because you can be an endurance athlete your whole life, but to be an endurance athlete at the top end, everyone cycles out of that. And to watch it here, I can see what you're talking about, where you're suddenly on the sidelines going, is this the best place to be on the sidelines? Or could I, if I can't do this, maybe I need to be in Palo Alto or somewhere else. Baltimore.
I was maybe I should go back to Palo Alto and have more of that, science and medical richness surrounding me.
Okay.
Just it's like, you go to the park and you have conversations here about endurance running. And Palo Alto, you go to the park and you have conversations about genetics. And it's just and you do here too.
Funny.
It's kind of wild, actually. I feel like the number of people that have moved to Boulder from Seattle or the Bay Area, it's like we have so many California friends that are here now, but there definitely is much more of obviously that endurance focus too.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I think a lot of what I see, and this podcast is really cool for that because the people I get to meet, there's a lot of excellence here. And so that could be in athletics, it can be in endurance sports, it can be rock climbing, or it can be in, culinary arts, it can be in genetics. It could be, it could be in anything. It can really be where if you're the best, you may find yourself here in Boulder.
Agreed. And what I like about it is, I think to me, it feels much more like a balanced excellence.
I love that.
So coming from Palo Alto in the Bay Area, those schools are known to be pressure cookers.
I gotcha.
Like the middle school, high school environments.
Wow.
And there's a lot of beautiful things that can come from that. But ultimately, I think about Leo and Ollie, our 2 kids, and I'm like, I don't know if that pressure cooker environment is what, and I think you can also find environments outside of that, but you really have to work for that. And it feels more natural here.
That's cool. And when you just said that, one of the things that I think you'll see when you start to look at schools here in public and in private is that you can select. So if you want if your child ends up being the person that needs the pressure cooker environment, which I think some people do, you can actually find that, I think, at some of our elementary, middle, and high schools. We have them on the public offering. If you don't, or if he doesn't, then you say, all right, guess what? We can fit him into a bilingual school or a baccalaureate school or a art school. There's just everything. And I think that's pretty cool. I don't know what it's like in Palo Alto, but that's something you have here.
It is cool. Well, it's funny because I remember this conversation. You were driving your truck or your car, and we were playing with Leo and Ollie outside, and we were talking about schools.
Right. And
I've just been in the preschool market, so all I know is Boulder preschools. Leo is 2.5, and Ollie is 3 months. And so you're telling us about the ability to select different schools within the school district, and it blew my mind. I was like, I had no idea you could do that. And so another perk of Boulder. It's
funny. I remember that conversation. And this is just I'll close the loop here, but you and I were talking, and I immediately thought, because I'm trying to produce some YouTube content, and that was the next one I did, the video on, because I realized I was so passionate. I'm really passionate about sharing that news with someone in your shoes, and we needed to know that. We didn't know, and it's something I feel like, so just to produce that and share with people, you have a neighborhood school, but you can select anything in Boulder Valley. It's cool. It's fantastic, and there's a chance you won't get in, but it's if you apply and you try, you are allowed to do that. So neat. It is a neat aspect. And then there's private schools here that are quite good as well. So if you end up, some people, that's the right fit for them. And so neat when you get to that, but you have a little while. So coming back to, and this is fun. So you're here, we're fully here. I love that drawback. What about on the upside? Like when now you're a full-time resident, are you exploring and finding more that you love about Boulder? And if so, what did you find?
I mean, honestly, always finding more things that
That's
I love
cool.
about Boulder.
How
And that's the
cool.
neat thing about having kids is, you know, Leo now 2.5, is I feel like I've been exploring Boulder through Leo too, like through his eyes.
Yes.
And, you know, I feel like David and I have explored the trails and adventure, but when you have a kid, it's like I kind of want to explore all the, like let's go to the planetarium, let's go do all these different things. And it's almost like living vicariously through a 2.5-year-old. It's like a great excuse to go to the planetarium. So I think constantly still learning about Boulder.
Cool.
David and I, we do work a lot.
You
and so
guys
I would
do.
say we could learn more by being a little less busy.
Yes.
And that's actually something that, you know, I think I do want to be here forever, and I can see us going through different phases of life.
Yes.
Like, you know, having a 2.5-year-old, eventually having a 10-year-old, and exploring the sports scene and exploring different things. And, you know, also I would love to, like, when we have more time, to do things like go to comedy shows and, you know, go out to more, like, you know, there's so many different restaurants and things that Boulder has to offer.
Yes. I think I remember talking to David too, and it was like that same thing where, so what's your favorite? Well, we don't really go out to restaurants.
Did he tell you Wild Pastures Burgers?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
we
did.
go to, like, we have a lot of just, like, fast casual restaurants that we're big fans of.
I love, hey, you know what? And it's good. It's good. And that we have a Wild Pastures instead, like, that's a good choice.
That's a great choice.
Really good, you know, that's a unique thing about Boulder. So, okay. And then talking about a little bit what you're doing now, because there's one other thing, I know swap, and I want to get into the athletics, but tell us about, and I don't want to say it wrong, but Huzzah. Thank you.
You gotta go all in when you say it.
I have to get it. I already regret that was recorded, me saying it that flatly.
Huzzah!
Okay.
You redeemed yourself.
Okay,
Perfect. Amazing.
Okay, so tell me about that.
So started Huzzah. After my PhD, stayed on to research at Stanford, and then ultimately decided that I wanted to translate research for female athletes, but make it really fun. Like outside of, like, I mean, within an academic institution, obviously you're at an academic institution, and so you can't do things like say Huzzah. It's different. And so I wanted to translate science for female athletes, make it really understandable, make it fun. And so we've been doing that right now, primarily on Instagram, but building out YouTube podcasts. And then also just want to support female athletes through scholarships. So providing things like childcare funds for women who have kids to be able to have childcare to go out for a long run.
So good.
Do things like provide a race experience for an athlete that might not be able to afford to take a race trip. And so have a lot of different, we're kind of we launched it not that long ago, under a year ago. Yeah. And had a baby during that time. And so
there you go.
We're in the infancy. It feels a lot like Huzzah feels like a baby in some
like a baby,
ways.
yes. Well, it is. Well, cool. Good for you. That's amazing. I didn't know about the scholarships. And then how much not competition, but how, that's not a saturated market. Like,
no.
Like we're right. I mean, I think you're doing great things in a new frontier.
Yeah, it is not a saturated market at all. And I actually wish it could be.
It should be.
Market.
We'd love it for,
I think, you know, there has been a lot more focus on female athletes, female athlete research, which is exciting. But I feel like not a lot on just like making science understandable and
That's
fun.
A good point. That's and a good point.
I think we're the only people that are doing
I bet you're right.
And I hope there's more. And actually I've had people reach out to me that want to do similar things, and I'm like, let's share the love.
Let's share it, yeah.
Because ultimately, like, at the end of the day, it's just to uplift women doing, and all women, it's like any, you know, not just elite athletes, anyone who's out there sweating on a weekend. It's
That's
like,
right.
You're an athlete in that case. And so I think, you know, the more the merrier.
Very, very true. And I think what you just said is, I think back to when Amanda and I were racing, and I think it was Dr. Stacy Sims, right? She comes out and she's got like a thing that's, she's a friend, something about like, women are not just smaller men or something. It's like, it's not a smaller version of a man. And we're like, oh, how come no one said that before? Because like clearly men and I are going like, why does this work for me? And you know, like, you're smaller, like, okay, that's cool. And you're explaining it better than I could even just explain the concept.
Yeah. And there's so much that goes into female athlete performance.
Right.
Like, when you think about, you know, menstrual cycle, you think about like fertility and pregnancy and postpartum. And, you know, navigating even just like the mental challenges of this all. And so I think there's just a lot of unique aspects that have left to be explored. And also a lot of the scientific studies only look at male athletes. Like, you know, I talked about the performance revolution of so much performance science coming out. But when you look at things like sodium bicarb and ketones, which are supplements that athletes are taking, most of the research is done on male athletes.
Right.
And so it's like, we kind of have to think about how we're translating this to female athletes.
That's right. Oh, it's so good. I'm intrigued by that, and I want to follow that and learn more, because it's where I'm not in that space as deep as I once was. I have a daughter, you know what I mean? And who knows what she's going to be into, right? She loves to swim, she loves to run, she loves to do sports. And also just overall goodness of sharing amazing stuff like that with the people. Our tribe is an athletic tribe. And so I'm excited to follow that some more.
And I love too, it's like, I think thinking about like adolescent girls competing, and it's like, there's so much dropout within sport too, amongst female athletes at, age 13, 14, 15, 16.
Yes.
And it's like, how do we keep women in sport?
Yes.
And that's a big part of what we do too, is like, let's help athletes be lifelong athletes, not just, 13, 14-year-old athletes that go on, that for whatever reasons have bad experiences in sport.
Right.
And I think there's a lot that can be improved with that.
I'm with you. And it made me, another kind of common tie that we have is Allie, right? And you guys coach her. And again, to not dive into her story, but I remember her posting something that just absolutely broke my heart when she was talking about something that she heard as a young athlete, as a child, that impacted her and still impacts her. And you think about, like, for better, for worse, the things we say and that we know and that we do, they can have a lifelong impact or effects.
And I think Ali Ostrander speaks out about this all the time.
She's so good about it.
She's so good about it. And I think we're also creating a landscape where female athletes are more comfortable talking about their experiences.
So good.
And then it trickles down. Like, Ali has a great YouTube series. And she shared with us that the primary audience is actually young women.
That's wonderful.
And it's great. It's like, we need young women watching these messages. And I think it's such different messages than even I received, as a young female athlete. And it's like, I hope that we're creating like better environments and landscapes for that.
I'm fully on board with that. And anything I can do to help share that, I'm in. And the same goes for Ali and her message and all of it. It's just that positivity and speaking about it, because it's like, and you said fertility. Guess what always gets swept under the rug? Fertility. Why is that something that we just don't say anything about? And we don't ever explain it, and then people are lost and left with no answers when they need them.
Yeah, and it's like, how do you, I coach athletes. I coach an athlete right now that's going through the IVF process, and, balancing that and training, and it's a lot. It's a lot physically, it's a lot mentally, and I think people don't talk about it enough.
Yes.
And I think we're at an age where we're starting to provide more support.
Yes.
Especially to athletes, because it's like, when you're using your body in a physical way and going through hormonal processes, it's hard.
It's super hard. Well, kudos for doing that. I'm on board. I love that you're doing it, and I want to see more about that. It is something that, again, in my family, very closely, it impacts me and has impacted me, but also just for the greater good of everything. Keep doing that. I know you're going to. You're not waiting for me to say that, but keep doing that, and I'm supporting that however I can. Okay, and now let's dive into a little bit of now. We've talked about your kids and daycare and preschool, but what does it look like now? I mean, now you're really in it. You're too busy to go out for dinner with us,
No. We need to fix that.
Let's do it.
We're doing it.
Let's do it. So we'll have dinner outside of the dinner that you're gonna have with me and Amanda, the four of us, maybe. What goes on a day-to-day basis? What's a day look like for you here in Boulder?
It's been busy. Yeah, it's been real busy.
Okay, here's what'll be fun then. Tell me a typical day.
Yep.
And then tell me an ideal day, and I want to see how much they match. If it's the same thing, cool, tell me once. But
actually, it's interesting, it is a fun reflection, because I think they're probably pretty parallel.
Okay, should we start with
let's start with the typical day.
Okay, let's hear it.
Typical day, wake up at 5 a.m.
Yep.
I have 3-month-old now, Ollie.
Yeah.
And he is wonderfully sleeping through the night.
Oh, good.
And so it used to be that I would actually be up with him throughout the night, and then I would sleep until 7. But now I get to wake up at 5.
I love it.
I get to see you go out for your run, your headlamp run in the morning.
Bouncing headlamp.
But wake up at 5. From 5 to 7:30, I'm like nursing Ollie and kind of doing a combination of work too.
Okay,
responding to emails, coaching athletes in that time period. And then 7:30, Leo gets up. Play with him till 9, when he goes to daycare, which we call school.
School, totally. It's school.
I call it preschool, but functionally daycare.
Yeah.
And then I train, once I drop him off at daycare, it's my time to train, and I love that time so much.
Yeah, I bet.
And coming back right now postpartum, doing some big bike days in addition to running, just to offload my pelvis on the bike. And so, it could be like a 50, 60 mile ride.
Wow,
it could be an uphill treadmill run. It could be a run out on these trails. So I generally train for like 2 or 2.5 hours.
Super.
Which is kind of wild because Leo goes to school from 9 to 1. And so I drop him off at school and then it's like 1 o'clock already. I'm like, this time went by so fast. And then come back in the afternoon, do a bunch of work on my computer, coaching, research, Huzzah-based work.
Yes.
And then 4:30 comes and play with Leo and Ollie and, have dinner, and then we go to bed at like 7:30.
Yes. I get along very well with you, just in, similar vibes. That's kind of like, exercise, work, family, sleep.
Yes. Sleep early.
Sleep early, up early. Yeah, you guys sleep a lot. That's good.
I really like to sleep.
Good for you. Stay with that.
Yeah. Actually now we've been watching some good shows on TV. So we'll go to bed at we'll watch shows from 7:30 to 8:30 together and then go to bed. Okay,
so then if you were going to describe a perfect day, would there be something added or deleted from what you just said?
It's a great question. I mean, honestly, I love the work I do so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe I would dial back work a little bit. And, I think a perfect day for me would be our weekends where we go and have Leo and Ollie up at the cabin where David's parents are.
Yes.
And David and I get to go on an adventure together while David's parents watch the kids and then come back and do activities with them.
That's so cool.
And so it's a beautiful reflection. I really, really, really miss working with patients, and I miss medicine, and I miss the academic nature of it. But I'm also just so happy to be flexible and to be doing things like Leah was painting in the kitchen this morning at 9 a.m., making a giant mess. And it's it's a gift too. So,
it is a gift. It's different. And do you find, I love that. And I do feel like you're in great alignment right now. And I don't ever really say balance, but you get alignment or equilibrium, because I think that what you're doing on your daily basis is really just how you would craft a day. I mean, that's cool.
Well, it's actually interesting. I think I've made hard decisions when it comes to not going to residency, when it comes to not staying in academics, when it comes to being in Boulder full time. And actually, I think I've gotten back to this exact question. I come back to this question a lot, is this the day I want to be living? And I love that you asked that, because it's I actually ask that to myself on a yearly basis, and it has to be in alignment. And that's a primary driver behind all that I do.
And the answer is still yes. You get those yeses.
Yes.
Wow, so cool. Well, you're fascinating to me. I think even your husband said it. He called you the smartest person he knows. And you guys are fans of one another, but it's not false. You guys really believe in one another, and that's beautiful. I get chills.
Oh.
It's nice. I love that. I mean, I feel that way in my own life. And so when I see it and I feel it, I do really get chills. But when he says that, you're a smart person. So you could do probably anything. Physically, mentally, emotionally, you could do whatever you want. And I think you're doing it.
Yeah. It's funny because it's I actually now I'm if I went back to medicine, it would probably give me so much anxiety. I'm I don't know if I could do that.
Maybe.
And so there's different elements of it, but I'm really it's a reflection of I'm glad that you asked that question, because it has centered everything that we do, and it's also David in that equation too. We're working side by side.
So cool.
On a lot of that. And it's a gift to be able to do that.
It is, and I think the people that don't get it or haven't done it or couldn't do it. Oh, what's it like working with your spouse? Well, with you guys, it's it doesn't mean it's always easy.
No.
But it's always worth it, and it's always working, and that's pretty cool.
And there are days that it's hard. We
for sure
show up and record a 90-minute podcast together every week.
Yeah.
And it's playing ping pong with each other, and sometimes that ping pong does not work.
You're why am I hitting and you're not
David
doing anything?
David will just be hitting full serves at me, and I'm I can't snatch it back.
Yeah.
And so,
how funny.
It's definitely hard, but I think it just makes us have to communicate better, which is
does. And it's all growth. I mean, if you think about some of the stuff that you're going through now, or you're making your way through, you're building strength for future stuff, maybe challenges, maybe great times, but you're still always building for things you're going to encounter later.
Yes, that foundation of communication you just have to keep coming back to.
It's so important. And it's a law. It's a sort of a slippery slope where the communication we should be better at, but it's not getting much better these days.
Yeah, every once in a while, especially with 2 kids, you're we have to have a check-in on this communication.
Totally. And it's neat too for me to see you have family and you have help and you hire people and you get people around to give you guys time to step away and be together.
Actually, that's been the biggest thing is it's a privilege to invest in childcare. And sometimes it's hard because it's like, I want to be, it's like as a mother, it's like, sometimes it's hard to invest in that, but it's also given us the gift of our relationship and our training and our work. And, also Leo, the gift of, being social at, daycare,
school,
which we call school, and us the gift of receiving like 24 daycare viruses too.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're like, wow, what an immunity I've built. Thank you very much. What's RSV? I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah, David had that 2 weeks ago.
Sure, why not? I mean, why not? Yeah, I mean, he's a parent, he's a dad. He's in the saliva. But okay, cool. I shouldn't have said saliva because now we've suddenly gone from like this beautiful topic to
No, that's perfect. That's how David and I podcast together. It's like we say something, it's like we're on like a something, and then all of a sudden it's like saliva.
Yeah, saliva.
It's usually worse than that. Actually,
it is. I know this is a family-friendly show here today. No, I'm not sure if it is. But okay, well, cool. Well, let's do a couple fun hits real quick. If you were gonna have someone into town, and you want to show them the best of Boulder, tell me a fun, and we're gonna do this in this order. You're gonna bring them in. You're gonna take them through. So if you say, hey, we're going out for coffee. I might even get them a treat or breakfast, and then I'm going to take them on my favorite trail, and then I'm going to cap it off with one Boulder experience and dinner. So those 4 or 5 things. What would you do? You could. I'll give you a little time to think, but you're building someone awesome that's never been here, coming to visit you, and you're like, wait, you're going to have a day with the Roches romping through Boulder County.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Let's start at Lucky's Market.
Okay.
I love the bakery there.
Yes.
I actually did my taxes the other week, and I was like, good Lord, I spent a lot of money on Lucky's Bakery. It's like every Sunday, it's like, oh, there's $20 at Lucky's Bakery.
Yes.
So cookies.
Okay.
Leo loves the cookies there, coffee there.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of start the morning there. And then I think drive to Hidden Gem Trail in Boulder.
Okay.
OHV in Left-Hand Canyon. So primarily, I mean, it's designed mostly for mountain biking. But David and I run there a lot. And very quiet trails, big vert, beautiful like views, and so it's kind of nice to take someone off the beaten path.
Yes.
So we do that, and then do a creek dip in Left-Hand Canyon after. Some fun do around.
I like that. Yes.
Then I think come back and honestly go to Wild Badger's Burgers.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Easy, fast, casual place. Easy to just pop in after an adventure, and then I think for the evening maybe head over to Rayback for some food truck. And it's funny being postpartum and breastfeeding and being pregnant. I haven't had beer in a minute, but their beer menu is so good.
It's extensive. And they have all on tap. And you're like, how do you even fit that many kegs back there?
Yeah. Or it's like, right now it's March Madness. Yes. And it's so fun when there's games on. You can sit there.
Very cool.
Family friendly environment too. So.
And Rayback is so cool. And I have to think, you're the first person to mention it.
Really?
Maybe two, maybe one other.
That's surprising.
But it's neat. Yeah. And again, everyone here maybe has already heard of it, but if you're coming and you're looking, it's right there on 28th Street at Valmont, and it's designed as one of the first little places here in the town or the area designed for food trucks with a built-in, I mean, there's horseshoes, right? And there's
fire pit,
and indoor, outdoor, dog friendly, and you can go in the space. You can even go there, at least you used to be able to go there in the morning and have coffee and hang out with real quiet. Yeah. If you ever need a quiet spot, but that's a cool one. Okay, good day.
Yeah.
That's a good day. So that's a nice little intro to Friend in Boulder. So very perfect. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and maybe actually in the afternoon do a little stroll in our backyard trails back here.
Yes. A little dog stroll or take them out there.
I'm always hesitant to share the beautiful backyard trails that we have, but we have an open space back here that is stunning. Quiet.
It is. Yeah. I know. It's really, yes, we're very fortunate. I think when I express gratitudes in the morning, I'm trying not to recycle. I try to do new ones, but it's hard not to be out there. This morning was one. I did like a 3-mile run, and I'm looking, I was just like, seriously, this is my backyard.
At 5 a.m.
It's so beautiful.
I always see
at 5 a.m.
Yeah. Your headlamp inspires me.
Well, I'm glad it's doing something. It also, it keeps me upright. The dogs, they don't like it. I think they see better without it. But okay, no, that's cool. So very cool day. And then I didn't give you an outline, but I will say this: you knew you were going to chat with me. Is there anything that you thought, well, I hope Lovato asked me, or something you want to share that you haven't been able to bring up yet?
Ooh.
And it's okay to say no. But if there is something you just want to share with me or anyone that's listening,
I think maybe favorite adventure here.
Let's hear
Boulder.
Let's hear it.
I think I mentioned this briefly, but actually kind of outside Boulder, but High Lonesome Loop.
Yes, tell us.
Up outside near Eldora, up in Netherland, and beautiful. It's on the Continental Divide.
Yeah.
It's like 15 miles, probably like 3,000 feet of vert.
Yes.
And it is just like open, beautiful, like go in August and like great wildflowers out there. and big expansive mountain views, and that's like one of my favorite loops.
That is so good. What a good, and you know what's funny is we have another neighbor, Andrew, lives down the road.
Yep.
I'd only seen it. I always knew that was there. I'd heard people talk about it. And after 23 years in Boulder, whatever it was, last summer was the first time I did it.
Yeah.
And I did it with Andrew, and oh my gosh.
Oh.
You're like, wait, I'm maybe an hour, but really like 45, 50 minutes from home, and I'm in this completely other world. And you're looking down at Winter Park.
Oh, it's
and
great.
you're looking over here.
And it's quiet too.
That is
a
a super. Well, I'm really glad you brought that up. And you can walk it. You can camp out there. I saw camping.
Yep.
You can run it. You can do everything. It's just a beautiful. What a great tip.
It's beautiful. And then final tip is, I didn't realize how good the gravel biking was here in Boulder until we moved to this house. And a half mile from us are gravel roads, and I can do 40, 50 mile rides on like 90% gravel and have a minute of stoppage time because, there's like very few traffic lights or cars. And so I think just exploring the gravel roads out here, I love like being out. I mean, the mountains are great, but there's something about the farmlands.
I agree.
And I stop and I pet the horses.
Yes.
I've named each horse after whatever music I'm listening to. I got like a Shabuzi horse.
Oh, Shabuzi.
A Dochi horse. And
she's so good.
She's so good.
Yes.
Yeah, I got my different horses out there, and they're named after whatever song I'm listening to when I pet them.
Who else besides Shabuzi and Dochi? Who's out there?
I got Beyonce.
Beyonce's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever met our chickens? We've got a few chickens named. Yeah, we have a Beyonce here.
Oh, you have a Beyonce chicken?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
We'll talk. We've got good. Yeah. You might help us name our next.
I got Florence and the Machine Horse.
Oh yeah.
But I'm like, that's kind of a band, so maybe I need like multiple Florence and the Machine Horses.
Florence, and then whoever's behind her.
The machines.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But that's well said. The gravel biking here is something that is absolutely just really hard to beat.
Yeah. I actually, honestly, I've been talking a lot about trail running, but gravel biking might bring me more joy.
It is. Yeah. There's something about it too, and there's tying in that feeling that you can't really. Just being on a bicycle, and it brings back that feeling from the youth, but then that freedom and that speed and the floating. It's a good thing.
Agreed. I just like to go fast.
Going fast,
and you can go. I mean, the gravel roads are well maintained here, so you can go fast on them. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like it. Well, this is so good. I love that you came up with some good tips, some good surprise hits, and folks, this has been super fun. Those of you that are listening, this is. No one ever calls you Dr. Megan Roche, but I do. Do they call you that? Is that just
no? I'm like, just call me Megan.
Just call her Doc. So it's Megan Roche. She amazing. I have so much enjoyed this, and I hope you've had fun too. What a great conversation. Folks can follow you on Swap. Where else can they find you?
Huzzah?
Instagram.
Yeah, Huzzah is online. Strava. You can find some of the routes I've mentioned.
I know. Yeah, it's fun to follow.
Also, if you're not following Michael on Strava, you for sure should.
Yeah.
The 5 a.m. inspiration is high.
And you'll see like really slow 3 mile jogs.
No. You're running for him. You run by, and David and I are like, wow.
It's just a very nice compliment. Thank you so much for that. And so for sure, I appreciate that. And anyway, thank you so much for joining. And as I do at the end of every show, I will encourage everyone who's listening, and you as well, to go out and do something that you love.